In March 2024, police officers in Hull walked into a funeral home and found 35 bodies. Not victims of a crime, not a mass casualty event. Bodies that had been paid for. Bodies that were supposed to have been buried. Bodies that had been sitting there, some for over a year, while the families grieved, visited a grave that didn't exist yet, and held memorials for people who hadn't been cremated. And the man responsible, he handed those families bags of ash. Other people's ash. The question isn't just what Robert Bush did, it's how he was able to do it for 12 years, and whether, right now, it's happening somewhere else. Let's strip this down to what the documented record actually tells us. Legacy Independent Funeral Directors. A small, no-frills funeral home in Hull, East Yorkshire. On paper, a legitimate business. Registered, trading, trusted. Robert Bush had been operating it since at least May 2012. He presented himself, in the words of his own former employee, as caring. Families went back to him. Karen Dry used him for both her parents' funerals, 2016 and 2018. On the 6th of March 2024, Humberside Police executed a warrant on the premises. What they found, 35 bodies. More than 100 sets of ashes. 4 of those bodies were babies lost in pregnancy. One of the bodies had been there for a full year. Now here's the first thing the evidence makes clear. This wasn't a sudden collapse. It wasn't a business that went under overnight. The charges span from May 2012 to March the 6th, 2024. 12 years, during which time Robert Bush continued to take in bodies, continued to take money, and continued to hand families the ashes of strangers. At Hull Crown Court on the 2nd of April 2026, Bush entered the dock in a dark grey 3-piece suit, white shirt, mauve tie. He was carrying a large black holdall. The court clerk spent 10 minutes reading out 31 charges. 30 counts of preventing a lawful and decent burial of a dead body. That's the legal category. Preventing burial. It means those people weren't just delayed. They were abandoned. 1 count of theft from 12 charities. The Salvation Army, Macmillan Cancer Support. He had previously admitted 35 counts of fraud by false representation. That's the ashes. Giving families ashes that didn't belong to their loved ones. And 1 count of fraudulently running a funeral plan business involving over 150 individuals. Bush said guilty to each count. Quietly, standing with his hands clasped in front of him, he didn't look at the families in the gallery. The judge, Mr. Justice Hilliard, told him directly, a custodial sentence is inevitable. Up to 240 victims' impact statements are expected before sentencing on the 27th of July. But here's what I want you to focus on, because this is where the documented record gets more disturbing than the headline suggests. Danny Middleton was in his 70s when he died in November 2023. His stepdaughter Michaela Baldwin paid for his funeral. She was given ashes. She believed those ashes were her stepfather. They weren't. Tristan Essex trusted Bush with his grandmother, Jessie Stockdale. After Jessie was told to have been cremated, Tristan and his family went back to Legacy's premises several times to collect ashes, to have them transferred. He said this, and I want you to hear it. We've been in there a few times afterwards to get the ashes transferred, and the whole time my grandma was there in the back, just rotting. Jesse Stockdale's identity was eventually confirmed through DNA analysis. Karen Dry, who organised monthly vigils for victims' families throughout the investigation, put it plainly outside the court. She said Bush had caused irreparable damage to communities, that families were, in her words, blindsided. They had, she said, no idea of the level of repulsive and sickening findings inside that building. Stay with me on this, because what I'm about to show you is a layer of this story that the news coverage hasn't touched yet. It involves the police, and it changes how you read everything that came before. Here's where the documented record takes a turn. From the moment Robert Bush was charged in April 2025, Humberside Police had a private agreement in place with a London-based production company, Brinkworth Productions. The major crime team investigating the case was being followed by documentary cameras. At the same time, the families of victims, the families of Danny Middleton, Jesse Stockdale, and 33 others were being sent letters from the detective superintendent leading the investigation. Detective Superintendent Alan Curtis. His letters told families to, quote, refrain from posting online or speaking about their involvement until proceedings have been concluded. The reason given was to protect the integrity of the trial. And then, in the same letter, he confirmed, without apparent awareness of the contradiction, that the investigation was being filmed for a TV documentary. Claire Stockdale, whose 89-year-old grandmother Jessie was among the bodies, said, "They told us to say nothing to protect the court case, but all along they were working with this documentary team." Michaela Baldwin described it as a two-tier system. Families were told silence protects the trial. Police were giving exclusive access to a film crew. Now, Humberside Police position is that no profit was made and that the documentary would tell the story of the victims sensitively and respectfully. That may be true. But here's the documented reality. The people whose loved ones were inside that building were silenced. The people investigating the case were on camera. Make of that what you will. Robert Bush is not the first. That's the part of this story that should concern you most. In England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, right now, today, there is no specific regulatory regime for funeral directors. None. Anyone can set up a funeral home. Anyone can handle human remains. There is no licensing requirement, no mandatory qualification, no independent inspection regime. An embalmer named Sammy Davenport, who has worked in the industry since 1996, told the BBC this year, and I'm quoting directly, "Anyone in the industry could easily get access to dead bodies. I could have done absolutely anything." She described seeing a lot of bad practice. Staff overwhelmed, bodies piling up, operators continuing to take remains because, as she put it, it's money, isn't it? That's what it boils down to. Hull, Gosport, Leeds. 3 separate funeral scandals in England in recent years. All enabled by the same structural gap. Conservative MP Dame Caroline Dinenage said, "The absence of laws beggars belief." She said she feared this might be the beginning of a pattern. Government, as of autumn 2025, said it is committed to getting funeral regulations right. Scotland introduced its first legally regulated funeral standards on the 1st of March 2025. England has not. Karen Dry, who trusted Robert Bush with her parents' funerals nearly a decade ago, is now calling on MPs to demand a full public inquiry. She said this outside Hull Crown Court the day her abuser pleaded guilty to 30 charges. "It is essential to establish accountability and implement the safeguards required to prevent any further reoccurrence." The National Association of Funeral Directors wants 3 specific reforms: an independent inspection regime, clear rules for the care and transport of the deceased, and the creation of a new office, a commissioner for the deceased, someone whose job is to make sure this can't happen again. That office does not yet exist. So what actually happened? A man ran a funeral home for 12 years. He took in bodies he couldn't or wouldn't process. He handed grieving families the ashes of strangers. He stole from cancer charities. He sold funeral plans he had no intention of honouring. He did it because there was nobody checking. No inspector, no regulator, no licence he could lose. He was arrested on a plane. He stood in a court and said, "Guilty," quietly, 30 times. He walked out of the building carrying a hold all. His victims' families pursued him down the street shouting. He goes back to court on the 27th of July for sentencing. The judge has already said prison is inevitable. But here's what the documented record cannot yet answer. Robert Bush operated for 12 years before the raid. The alarm wasn't raised by a regulator. It wasn't caught by an inspector. It came from somewhere we don't know exactly how this investigation was triggered. What we do know is that multiple other funeral scandals have happened in England in the last decade, under the same absence of oversight. The MP for Hull called Robert Bush's crimes an abuse of his position of trust. She's right. But a position of trust requires a system of accountability, and that system doesn't exist. The question isn't just whether Robert Bush deserves prison. I mean, he does. The question is what happens in the funeral home 3 streets from where you live that no one is inspecting, that no one is licensed to run, where there is currently no law requiring anything of the person handling your loved one's remains. That question doesn't have a good answer yet. This case is open. Robert Shaw is sentenced in July. The regulation debate is live in Parliament. I'll be tracking both. If you want the evidence on the other cases, Gosport, Leeds and the American precedent that makes all of this look even worse, the Tri-State Crematory case, that's the next file. If this is the kind of content you come here for, dark history, stripped down to the documented record, subscribe. Leave a comment with what questions you want answered next. The one about the police documentary, the regulation gap, the ashes, whatever's in your head right now. This is Midnight Case Files.